Good morning, everybody. I wanted to take a moment and put together a video so that I could reach all of my patients and anybody who happens to be following the website and the social media avenues, and give you an update on some of the things that I've learned over this last couple of days. I was on the air about a week ago here on local radio, and I shared some of my viewpoints, and most of that is still consistent. There have been a few things that I've changed my viewpoint on due to data that I've been able to view that came from research that was actually published this month out of China and Italy. So I'm going to try and put a few things together in just a nutshell so that it's understandable and kind of in the context of how my thought and paradigms are shifting. First and foremost, my tenet of no panic is still consistent. I really feel like our reaction is disproportionate with the risk that we as human beings are dealing with. And what I mean by that is that the reactions of hoarding and running through stores and worrying about running out of food, that's not going to happen. Our food chain is still consistent. We're not going to run out of toilet paper. We've still got plenty of paper in the United States. And we really just need to be neighbors and support one another in that sense and share. So that aside, I wanted to get into some of the things related to what is the reasoning behind some of the social distancing recommendations and the quarantine recommendations that we've been given. Because in the past, you hear that you're going to get an infection and you just say, okay, I'm going to get sick and I'll just deal with that. And for the lion's share of people worldwide, this coronavirus will be just like that. It's going to be an infection that you might not even know that you had. And in fact, some people have already had it and didn't know that they had it. It can be that mild in some individuals, and there's a reason for that. And there's also a reason why it's so concerning for other individuals. And that's what I really wanted to get to the root of, so I could understand why it's important for us to recognize some of the social concerns. So here's what I've come across. This particular virus enters our body through a receptor that's labeled with an acronym ACE. It's an angiotensin receptor. Anybody who deals with blood pressure knows that term. So angiotensin receptors, or ACE receptors, are all over the body, but it turns out that they're not just isolated to the vasculature that goes all over the body, but they're also all over our fatty cells. And when this virus enters the body via one of these receptor sites and it starts to take up residence and starts to replicate itself, it capitalizes on any state of inflammation that's already existing in that body. Well, fatty cells are a state of inflammation unto themselves. And you've probably heard this term cytokine storm. Well, cytokines are members of the white blood cell family that are generally thought of as cell signalers. Their job is really to go out and to present to your immunoglobulins, or the immune system at large, something that shouldn't be there. And they do that by making a mess. They do it by creating fevers, by creating swelling, by creating redness, by creating heat. Well, when you have all of those types of things going on in, say, your lungs or in your vasculature, well, that creates a big problem. Now you're not breathing well. Now your blood pressure is skyrocketing. And this is why individuals who are obese, individuals that have hypertension, individuals that are dealing with diabetes, or individuals that have prior lung issues, particularly scarring of the lungs, are at a higher risk for how the disease will manifest in them. not at a higher risk for contracting the disease. We all have that uniform risk. And it's my own personal take that by the end of this year, probably 90% of the planet will have had this disease. And again, many of those people that get it won't even know that they've had it because it's just going to be another cold to them, unless you go getting tested. So the development of the disease is another interesting factor in that they've identified that it actually takes up residence not only in those fatty cells but in other tissues like the lungs a week to 10 days in advance of manifesting any symptoms. And in individuals who are genetically predisposed to having lung issues already, well, that can leave some scarring in them, and that can be problematic lifelong. So the take-home message that I'm starting to put together in my own mind is that to the extent possible, we really do need to minimize our interaction with individuals that are going to be at higher risk so that we can give time for this thing to play itself out and give time for the medical community at large to have sufficient resources to provide those individuals that are at higher risk for dealing with the disease the tools necessary to allow them to make it through that process. And they will, as long as those tools are there. Now, the other thing that I found really interesting about this, and I mentioned that word cytokine storm, is that things that we commonly take for colds can actually worsen this process in us. And this is something that everyone should be aware of. So when we take things like echinacea, golden seal, Oregon grapefruit, berberine, andrographis, many of those immune stimulants, they do a great job. They stimulate your immune system. But that's not what you want with this particular virus. You actually want an immune neutral state because you want this cytokine rush to be tempered so that it doesn't get overblown, so it doesn't turn into that term cytokine storm. So to the extent that we can not stimulate our immune system, but assist it to be in a neutral state, you're going to fare better. And so here's some things that you can do. Avoid the things that I just mentioned, but do these things. Vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, zinc, vitamin C, and my personal favorite, glutathione. These are all immune modulators. These are things that help your immune system acquire a more neutral state. And as you get into that neutral state immunologically, it's going to temper the cytokine response, and you'll fare much better with any virus that you encounter, and particularly this one. The last three things that I'm going to tell you that you can do. Fasting has actually proved to be beneficial for this particular virus because when we fast, we actually, in real time, lower our inflammatory load. And as I said, this thing loves inflammation. So if we can reduce our systemic inflammation by skipping a meal a day, skipping 2 meals a day, not starving, but reducing our caloric intake. I mean, you could even do like a 3-day liquid fast if you wanted to. That would be awesome. So there's ways that you can reduce your inflammatory load in real time. Number 2, proper hygiene. Keeping your hands, your nose, and your mouth clean, staying hydrated along that track, and exercising. We need endorphins. We need to be in a good mood. We need to be able to deal with the garbage in the media that's getting bombarded onto us on a daily basis and work through that with a positive attitude. And dopamine really helps. And you're going to release a ton of dopamine through any form of exercise. So find those things that you love to do and do that. It just might not be in the manner that you used to do it with a whole bunch of people. So these are just some of my thoughts. I'm going to try and put this in writing so that it goes out on the email as well. I appreciate you listening, and I hope this is helpful to you. Be well.